Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. for the Maoist Third Worldist Collective. This podcast will focus upon a resource-based economy, a concept which was, to my knowledge, originated by Jacques Fresco and then later supplemented by people like Peter Joseph. Um, Originally, when Peter Joseph first developed his Zeitgeist movement, he began to correspond with Jacques Fresco. The result of that was that the Zeitgeist movement became a part of the Venus Project. Somewhere along the line, the two men got into a dispute. Exactly what the nature of that dispute was, I don't know. But it resulted in a fracturing between the two movements. And so now the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist movement exist as two separate entities. A recent development in the Zeitgeist movement was that until recently, it had been a top-down administrative structure. In recent years, they have changed that, and everything now is done by local groups. So there is no central coordinating body anymore, which has to approve local activities. All activities are done on the purely local level. Now, I must admit, I do not understand the resource-based economy that well. So if you're looking for expertise on it, look elsewhere. Although I will be providing an extensive collection of links that you can go to read more about it. But it seems to me that the more I read about it, the more confused I become. I know, for example, that Zeitgeist and the Venus Project both are opposed to money, and they think that money will be unnecessary under a resource-based economy. It also appears from some things that I have read that even work itself, or certain kinds of work, will be eliminated. I'm not exactly sure which of those is true, whether it is all work or certain kinds of work. Different websites I have visited say different things, and so it's confusing. And one might expect that because it is a collection of dispersed organizations and individuals who all have their own takes on what a resource-based economy should be. And so you will find different explanations, different constructions, different models of what resource-based economy actually refers to. From a Marxist perspective, let me start by saying that it appears to me that the resource-based economy, whether of the Venus Project or the Zeitgeist movement, would fall under the general category of what Friedrich Engels referred to as utopian socialism, meaning socialism and communism, as it was formulated by Marx, Engels, and their successors, was based upon the idea of examining the particular circumstances on the ground. So, for instance, Mao Zedong took the concept of the peasantry. Now, the peasantry was not referred to by Marx or Engels, but examining the specific material conditions that existed in China, Mao Zedong concluded that the peasantry should be at the forefront of any revolution against capitalism. So that was a further stage, you could argue, in the development of, well, in the development of scientific socialism. More recently, the movement that I am associated with, called Maoism Third Worldism, has taken Maoism a step further and has argued that today we need to look at the world and not simply individual nation states. And if we look at the world, we see a battle between the first world and the second world. The first world has all the power, the third world does not. I should have said a battle between the first world and the third world. The first world has all the power, the third world does not. And ultimately, I think that the first world will simply become obsolete, might even blow itself up. I only hope. I really do hope that. That may sound kind of odd because I live in the first world, but I don't care. I really, really, really want the first world to go. Whether that will happen, again, if I speculate, in a sense, I will myself be engaging in the very utopian socialism I'm speaking against. So I don't know. Maybe there will be a first world. Maybe there won't be a first world. But in any event, if we look at where the dialectical potential lies right now, it appears to me to lie very clearly in the third world. The recent revolutions which have taken place have all been in the third world, not in the first world. Perhaps the most successful revolution was not really a Marxist revolution. It was a kind of quasi-anarchist revolution which occurred in Iraq. And it resulted in the establishment of these magnificent communist communities in Iraq. Sadly, Turkey went in and bombed those communities. So as far as I know, those communities do not exist any longer. Maybe they found some other place to operate. If that is the case, I do not know about it. So again, that's my initial critique of resource-based economy, that it strikes me as fitting into the category of utopian socialism, which you could argue in modernity began with Saint-Simon, who was a French philosopher and was actually the inspiration for the beginning of sociology, by another individual named Auguste Comte. Auguste Comte was a very poor man, but he was supported by Saint-Simon. He got his paycheck in the mail, so to speak, and was able to carry on his work. If it were not for Saint-Simon, then Auguste Comte's work would not have progressed, because he would have, I think, starved to death or become homeless or something, and maybe both. So I don't think that utopian socialism, which is how I would categorize a resource-based economy, is a desirable condition. Now, here is where I run into problems, and that is in trying to understand exactly what a resource-based economy is. Because as I said, you go to different websites, and the people who make those websites all have their own ideas of what it is. One thing which seems to be relatively consistent is the elimination of money and the increased reliance on computerization. There seems to be an agreement that many or most jobs, especially lower-end jobs, will be eliminated and replaced by computing. Depending upon your perspective, you might regard that as good or bad. I honestly have no opinion on that because I don't know what that will mean. I make a very strong effort to avoid speculating on the future. And so talking about a world um, without certain kinds of work, I don't know what that would look like. I really don't. I have seen other resource-based economy websites which actually talk about the elimination of work entirely. So they take it one step further. They say, well, because of computerization, there simply is no need for work, or there will be no need for work. That what we think of as work today will be replaced by computers. Another website I went to said that only lower end jobs will be eliminated, but jobs like being a professor, being a K through 12 teacher, being an engineer, jobs that require greater human skill, those jobs will continue. So what I would say is that until people who are proposing a resource-based economy can come together, maybe in some kind of a conference, whether face-to-face or on Zoom, can arrive at some common ideas. I'm not saying they have to agree on everything. Nobody agrees on everything. That is a fallacy. Nobody agrees on everything. Nobody. Nobody. I've come close to some people. I agree, for example, with Jason Unruh on almost everything. I agree with Roy Bhaskar, the founder of critical realism, again, on almost everything. But to agree with somebody completely on any one subject would make us not quite human beings, I think. It would kind of take away our humanity, our agency, our ability to think for ourselves. So that is my problem with resource-based economy ideas, is their inconsistency. I'm not saying that inconsistency is bad. It may be good, but to comment on it and to work toward it, the question I have is, well, what are we working toward? And again, that is the problem with utopian socialism. Everything I have read about resource-based economies talks about the future, not about the present, primarily. And if you do that, you end up getting hung up in trivialities, in speculations, in things that you literally have no way of predicting. So I don't see the point of it. Back when I was still a professor, before I retired about a year or so ago, there was a student who I met at a fair. We used to have like 2 fairs a year at the college. And he was at both of them. And so whenever I would see this fellow at the fair, I would get into a conversation with him. He ran the resource-based economy club at the college. And he said, you know, we're having a meeting next week, and he gave me the location. And I went there, and nobody was there. So I mentioned that to him the next time I saw him. He said, well, yeah, you know, we're not very organized. We planned to meet, but then other things came up, and so we didn't meet. But the times that we did talk, we had fascinating conversations. I enjoyed them immensely, but I was still confused. I still don't know what it is. Now, it strikes me that a resource-based economy would be a type of communism or socialism, a type. And it would complete the list of communisms for me: Marxist communism, anarcho-communism, or anarchist communism, and a resource-based economy. All of those strike me as types of communism. Anarcho-communism, I have also had some critiques of in the past, of some versions of it, not all versions, because I think that they also tend toward utopian socialism in many cases. Not in all. There are some good anarcho-communists. Now, I don't share their objectives entirely. I think that the primary thing should be to eliminate capitalism, not to eliminate what anarchists commonly call verticalism, and to replace it with horizontalism, at least not in the initial phases of communism. Not to say that that would not be something to do later on. But resource-based economy seems to have that same utopian socialist streak to it. And so what I'm hoping is that somebody who is more familiar with the subject of resource-based economy, which I think is practically anybody, to be honest, will either make a response video in response to this podcast. We'll link it directly below this video, and I will, as I always say, watch it. Nobody has ever done that yet, and so I'm angry at you. No, I'm not angry. That's just my weird sense of humor. I really wish that somebody would make a video, a podcast on a resource-based economy. Maybe somebody who actually supports the idea, presenting a proponent's view of what it is. Because I have tried to look at different proponents' views. Whenever I'm studying something, I avoid looking that much at what enemies say. I'm not going to say I don't look at them at all. Of course, I look at them to an extent, but I try not to focus on them, because enemies have a habit of distorting the actual ideas that are being presented. So instead, I try to go right to the horse's mouth and to listen to what proponents of an idea say. And that is where I run into problems, because I can't figure out what a resource-based economy really is. But it does appear to me that the one line of agreement, as I said, is the elimination of money. The more contested issue concerns work, with some people saying, eliminate all work. There's no need for us to work. All that we consider to be work can be done by computers. Others say, free human beings from drudgery, whatever drudgery is, and allow human beings to engage in higher end work. Okay. I don't know which of those is advocated by most resource-based economists, because there's so much confusion concerning that subject. So again, please respond. Please clarify the issue for me. I beg of you. And then perhaps we can have a future discussion on the subject in a more informed way. Informed on my part, not on yours. This has been Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.